Losing the last 10 pounds always seems like something that's just elusive, something of a dream, right? Everybody sees a lot of progress sometimes up until a certain point, but it's always the last 10, the last 15, right? That it seems like there's a magical barrier that stops the people who get there from the people who don't. And it's one little secret thing, one magical key that you're looking for that's going to propel you to those last 10 pounds you want to get off so you can be more confident, look better, look more lean, maybe trim down the stomach, all those things. Well, the reality is it has nothing to do, surprise, surprise, with a secret. Instead, it's 3 basic things I'm going to break down for you in this video. Once done, you're going to watch those last 10 pounds melt off so you can finally reach your potential. Let's get into it. Coach John Mango here, helping you get leaner, stronger, and more energized so you can boost your confidence and reach your potential. We're gonna dive into the first point here, but just to preface, understand that the same cause and effect is at play here. What gets you to lose body fat, whether it's the first 10 or the last 10, is always going to have to be some form of calorie deficit. So keep that in mind, and that leads us into our first point, which is simply you're not getting technical enough. You have to understand the leaner you get, all that really happens, again, that deficit has to still be there, but really the key between the two, as you get leaner and leaner, your room for error starts to get smaller. Okay, so if you're at 8% body fat, you have a lot less room to mess up than you do if you're at 18% body fat, okay, because you can typically afford more calories at the higher body fat range. Also, visually, you're not going to notice much of a difference. The leaner you are, if you go a week straight of just destroying your diet, you're going to notice that tremendous visual difference. But if you're 18% body fat and you go up to 90% body fat in a week, you're not going to notice much difference. So these are a few reasons as to why you need to get a lot more technical the leaner you get. Okay, so in other words, as your body fat is decreasing, typically we get stuck because we're still eyeballing certain things that we cannot get away with eyeballing anymore. Maybe you're eyeballing the butter or the oils or the walnuts or whatever it is. Because you keep eyeballing it, it becomes too easy to go over on that, and the leaner and leaner you get, the slimmer your margin of error is. So make sure you're getting more technical. Weigh the stuff that you haven't been weighing up until now. Make sure you are tracking everything consistently so that you hit the calorie deficit all the time, and that way that last 10 keeps coming off as linearly as the first 10 did. Now I know you might be thinking, well, it's been difficult to get to this point in the first place, and that's correct. This is a difficult endeavor. Welcome to getting fit. If you want to get that lean, of course, you better have it drilled in your head as to why it's so important for you to lose those last 10, to lose those last 15. It could be a big difference in terms of your quality of life, not just because the way you look determines your quality of life, not at all. But if you get to that point, you'll be healthier. Maybe you'll feel better, more energized, be more productive, better mental clarity, better productivity, whatever it is. Determine that for you and understand and weigh out the pros and cons. Is it worth it to get more technical and spend a little bit more energy, a little bit more effort, and potentially sacrifice a little bit more on the other end to get down those last 10? I should have probably started with that. That should have been the preface, but the point is get more technical. The second point is you have to be prepared for slightly more hunger potentially, or slightly more cravings. So a lot of people, again, are stuck trying to lose the last 10, and oftentimes it could be because you've been in a deficit for an extended period of time. Keep in mind, after 12 to 16 weeks of being in a consistent deficit, typically hunger is going to eventually start to increase. You can decrease it at first, but it's going to end up catching up to you because your body doesn't want to be in a quote-unquote starvation mode, aka calorie deficit, for that long period of time. Your body doesn't like that. It prefers to be in homeostasis. After a prolonged period of time, your body's going to start saying, hey, I don't like this, boom, give me food. Hunger levels are going up, all this stuff. So you need to be prepared for this. Oftentimes the barrier that holds people back from those last 10 is that they can tolerate the amount of hunger or cravings that they've experienced up until this point, but they may not be ready for the fact that that's probably going to increase as you get leaner and leaner. Okay, a great example of the last 2 points is you look at competitors, right? Competitors have a set essentially mastered the ability to manipulate their body composition to get as lean as they want or need to get. In order to get there, hunger ends up going up. They can't be messing up that much, if at all, and that's really accumulation of the last 2 points. To lose the last 10, you're getting more technical, and you're preparing yourself that it is going to be a little bit harder from the mental side of things, because things like hunger are going to start increasing over time if you've been in a deficit for a while. You need to prepare for that. You need to start assessing the foods that are in your house that you're giving into if that hunger does increase. Also, a good tip to actually work around that is you want to start increasing volume of food. So it's a literal linear correlation with how lean somebody gets and sustains it over time to how healthy they're eating. In other words, more vegetables, more fruits, more voluminous food is always a better option the leaner you get, because again, it's going to keep the eventual rising hunger at bay as much as possible. It is impossible to lose the last 10 if you're trying to do it just off of, calorie dense foods, Big Macs, or donuts, whatever you can fit in there, because your hunger is just going to be way too high, and you're going to keep binging and falling into these cycles of overeating, and it's going to hold you back from losing those last 10. So keep that in mind. Be prepared for extra hunger, some spikes. You can fill that void with more voluminous foods. Start adding more spinach to the shakes, start adding more veggies to the meals, whatever it is you got to do. Start replacing whatever calorie dense sources you have with nutrient dense sources. That's going to go a long way to help you out. But nonetheless, if it's been a while, you've been in a deficit, you can lose those last 10. It's just going to be another step mentally that you have to be prepared to take. And by the way, the caveat to the last point is the third point here, which is what got you up until this point is likely not going to be what gets you to the next point, in the sense of the same foods that you're eating, maybe the same meal timing and schedule. So an example is this. Look, we understand calorie deficit is going to get you from where you are now to losing the last 10. It's always that simple, but it gets harder mentally. It's not more complex, it's not more complicated, it gets harder mentally. That's the second point. You have less room for error. Remember the first point. But also, throughout this time, as your margin of error decreases, as your hunger starts potentially increasing, you need to make the appropriate changes. This is where things like intermittent fasting can come into play and be beneficial. A lot of people start their fat loss journeys with intermittent fasting, which, okay, better than nothing, but they don't realize that intermittent fasting is simply a tool to help reduce hunger as calories get lower, as you get leaner. So at some point now, if you haven't tried it yet, you might want to introduce some form of strategic fasting. So putting off your first meal of the day until a little bit later on in the day, if you can manage that, or having that last meal of the day a little bit sooner and cutting off. In other words, shortening your eating window is one of the various ways that you can start to change things up to make losing those last 10 a little bit easier mentally and dealing with the hunger. Another thing is what I mentioned in the previous point, which is replacing any and all or as many calorie dense sources of food with nutrient dense sources of food. So for example, if you've gotten to the point you're at right now and you're eating one donut every day, okay, follow me on this, I know it's a little far-fetched, but the point is you're eating one donut per day and you've gotten to this point and now you're stuck, right? Or maybe you've had a few drinks on the weekend, every weekend until this point. Well, now you continuing drinking that alcohol might be one of those sacrifices you need to make if you truly want to lose those last 10. The thing that's keeping you, one of the invisible wall or barrier that's keeping you from getting there is not the fact that calorie deficit doesn't work all of a sudden. It does. It's not the fact that your body just suddenly doesn't want to get that lean. It's fine. You can still do it. It's the fact that if you stay with the habits that have gotten you to the point you are now and you're stuck with those habits, you need to change it. If there's a donut every day, you need to probably take that donut out, maybe have it once a week. If you're drinking every single weekend, you might need to take a few of those out, drink once every month, one weekend. Things like this where you're starting to reduce the little places where error can come in, because that margin of error is slimmer. You need to start pinpointing that stuff. Whether it's maybe in the mornings, every morning you have a protein bar. This happened to me, for example. I used to have a protein bar every morning that tasted amazing. It tasted so good. It was one of those grenade bars, not sponsored. Unfortunately, I would probably be down for one, but anyways, grenade bar tasted amazing, and I would have it first thing in the morning to hit the protein intake, but also to kind of satisfy the sweet tooth. Over time, as I was getting leaner and leaner, I started to notice that that little sugar hit in the first thing in the morning. It did have some sugar in it, and that good taste really set me up for likely binging or just falling off track some of those days, which did end up happening. I finally pinpointed what needed to be changed, and boom, I took that protein bar out and I replaced it with something that didn't have as much sugar, had more protein, was more filling, more satiating instead, and didn't trigger what would cause me to fall off at times. So again, the thing you need to do at this point is analyze what habits are conducive to you getting stuck. I know a lot of clients that we have, sometimes it's the alcohol, sometimes it's the smoking weed at night that causes them to, again, start eating a few extra foods. Sometimes it's not prepping enough, or not prepping ahead of time, or not prepping enough meals, whatever it is. Maybe sometimes it's, oh, I want to have the donut every other day. You might have to cut that back a little bit more now. Again, these are sacrifices. The whole point of this one is the fact that you need to likely sacrifice a little bit more to get to that next level. The same principles are applying here, but you're gonna have to throw a few more things in the fire in terms of sacrifice to burn it faster so you can lose that last 10 pounds. No pun intended, or pun intended. Anyways, those are the 3 things you need to do to lose the last 10. Notice there's no fancy workout. I'm not here being like, hey, you need to do this workout that's gonna get those last 2 pounds, and that food is gonna, it's not a food, it's not a workout, it's not a supplement, it is simply how to achieve that calorie deficit consistently when things get tough. The last 10 pounds is often after losing quite a bit in a calorie deficit for a long period of time. So all of this is to summarize the majority of what's taking place and why people have trouble losing the last 10 is because it's mental, it's more effort, but the same principles all around, and you're gonna have to sacrifice a little bit more. If you need a video training and you're thinking maybe you need to lose more than 10, or the last 20 or whatever it is, and you're having trouble seeing results predictably every single week, then there's definitely some red flags in what you're doing currently. You can check out a free training that I made down below that breaks those red flags down for you and shows you exactly how to fix it so you can start burning fat predictably, increasing your energy, getting stronger, and seeing the results you want to be more confident. So check that out down below. You can also join my free Facebook group down there as well. Hope you enjoyed this video. Drop a comment and let me know what your biggest takeaway was from it, and also what you want to see in the next one. I'll see you there. I'm out.